Hello everyone, I'm Heather, and in this video I want to talk to you about something related to the cruising experience that you may not have thought about before. On most of the cruises I've been on, I have been in a party of more than 2 people, mostly traveled with 2, 3, or even 4 other people. When you are going on a cruise with more than one other person, unless you get more than one cabin, which a lot of people do, you need to think about what is that third and possibly fourth bed in your cabin. And this is something I think a lot of people don't research or think about ahead of time before their cruise, especially when you don't have a fourth person. It's really difficult to justify the expense of getting 2 cabins when you only have 3 people. Because if you're traveling solo or you're, the third person in a party of 3, it still costs the same as it would for 2 people to be in that second cabin if you get 2. Most people in a party of 3 are probably always going to want to all get one room together that sleeps 3 or 4, so that they don't have to pay for 2 people in a completely separate stateroom. In recent years, this has been true for me on a bunch of my cruises that I've traveled with my 2 younger kids, Megan and Ben. There's been 3 of us, and so we've had a lot of experience finding out what the different bed options are on different cruise ships and on different cruise lines. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Okay, first of all, I'm going to give you kind of an overview of how cruise ship beds work, what different options there are, and how you can identify the different things on a cruise ship deck plan. And then after that, I'm going to go through each of our cruise ships or cruise experiences and tell you what exactly we had for a third and or fourth bed in our room and what was good about it and what was bad about it. Okay, so first of all, you need to know that when you book a cruise, it's going to ask you how many staterooms do you need and how many people are in the room. When you book a cruise, it will not even show you staterooms available that will not fit your party size. So for example, if you say that there are 3 people sharing your room, they won't show you any rooms that would only fit 2 people. So you don't have to worry about that when you're booking a cruise, because the cruise line website and everything won't even give it to you as an option. It'll only show you rooms that would accommodate the number of people that you have in your party. If you're booking a pretty popular ship or you're booking fairly late, it is possible, and this happens to me all the time when I'm shopping for cruises, that there won't be any rooms left that will accommodate your party size. And if that's the case, it'll tell you. It'll say, we're sorry, there are no rooms left that will accommodate your party size. So say you're, a mom and dad and 1 child or 2 children or whatever, or you're like 3 adults or something, it's possible that you won't have the option to all be in one cabin because there are no cabins left that could accommodate 3 or 4 people. So that's something good to know right up front, that you don't have to worry that you're accidentally going to pick a cabin that you won't fit in, because it won't even show you those cabins. A lot of people think that they can get around the problem of fitting a lot of people in a cabin by getting a suite. Now, a suite is usually going to be a very expensive way to go. And one thing I want you to know about suites is they aren't necessarily the best option if you have a lot of people. And I'll tell you why. They don't necessarily have a lot of beds. They'll have like maybe 1 bedroom and then a living area in which like a couch turns into a bed or something like that. So I don't think that suites are necessarily the best option when you have more than 2 people, because you're actually going to end up having to use the living space as another bedroom area. And that isn't necessarily probably what you had in mind. It's not like you're going to have a room with 3 or 4 bedrooms off of it for a bunch of people. I don't necessarily recommend that people jump right to suites when they're thinking about accommodating a larger party on a cruise, because that's not necessarily your best option, and it's probably going to be very expensive. Instead, what you should be looking at is what is the bed configuration in the rooms that accommodate 3, 4, or 5 people, or looking at 2 staterooms. Now, I'm going to give you a note about that really quick. If you're looking to book 2 staterooms, which we're actually doing on our upcoming cruise, there's 3 options. One, you could have 2 staterooms and they're nowhere near each other on the ship. You just have 2 random staterooms wherever. That was the case for us when my family, which was a party of 5, went on Holland America's Eurodam to Alaska last year. My dad and my oldest son were in a guaranteed stateroom because they wanted that lowest possible price. They actually got a very nice balcony stateroom midship on deck 8. My other son, my daughter, and I had paid for a certain class of balcony stateroom, and I chose the location of our stateroom, which I kind of regret actually, and it was forward on deck 6, I believe. Our stateroom on Holland America Eurodam accommodated 3 because it had a pull-out sofa bed. My dad and my older son's stateroom only could accommodate 2. It still had a sofa, but it was not a sofa bed. So 3 people could not have been in that room. Quick aside, the reason I regretted the location of our stateroom on that ship is because we did all have some issues with seasickness. And I'm going to talk about that more in an upcoming video all about seasickness because one of my viewers asked about this. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to make sure you don't miss that or any of our upcoming cruise content, be sure you subscribe to the channel. The second option, if you want to get 2 staterooms, is you can get 2 adjoining staterooms. Now, an adjoining stateroom does not have a connecting door. It's 2 side-by-side staterooms that are right next to each other, which you can look for yourself on the deck plans when you book your cruise, or you can have, your travel agent or the person, if you call the cruise line directly, figure out for you. And you can just get them right next to each other, but they won't have a connecting door. That would be adjacent staterooms. So you can get 2 adjacent staterooms that are right next to each other. The third option is that you can get connecting rooms. So lots of cruise ships have plenty of connecting rooms. You'll see these on Disney cruise ships. Lots of their rooms have connecting rooms because they're thinking of families traveling together. Maybe the parents want to be in one room and the kids want to be in the other, but they want to be able to go back and forth internally between them and see each other and everything. So connecting rooms are when you have a connecting door inside your stateroom that connects to the cabin next to you. So those are your 3 options. You can be 2 different places on the ship. You can be in adjacent staterooms that don't connect, or you could be in connecting rooms that have a connecting door. Okay, now that we have that option out of the way, in looking at rooms that will accommodate more than 2 people, you want to look at the key. You want to pay attention to the key and the symbols that indicate what kind of bed that 3rd and or 4th or 5th bed is. Because that's what we have found, and that's what I really wanted to talk about in this video today, can be really hit or miss. Some 3rd bed options are totally great and some are awful. And you might really want to do some research ahead of time when you're selecting your room or even your ship to help you decide, are we okay with this 3rd and 4th bed option or not? I have even come across where there were different 3rd and 4th bed options in different cabins on the same ship. This was true for us on Navigator of the Seas. And we really wished we were talking to another family and they had the other kind, and we really wished we had that because we didn't like what we had. So you really want to look very closely at the deck plans for your ship that you're going to be cruising on. And you want to look really closely at that key and what those symbols mean. And you might even want to look up one of the sites that gives reviews of cruise staterooms and talk specifically about what that 3rd bed was like. And maybe even some people will post some photos or some pictures, which I'm going to do for you here. And the reason I say this is really important is because you might end up with something that's really difficult for that 3rd or 4th person to sleep in or to get in and out of. You might end up with something that's really uncomfortable and that you're really not happy with. So it might even make or break your decision about whether you want to actually get a second stateroom instead of trying to put everybody into one room. In most instances, you cannot book a stateroom for someone unless they are 21 or older. And I want to say in some cases, it's actually even like 25. I'm not sure if I'm right. If anybody knows of a case where it's older than 21, let me know. The only exception that I've seen to this is if you are a married couple that you both happen to be younger than 21. So if you're a married couple, you got married when you were 20 and you're both 20, they will let you book a stateroom in that scenario. But somebody whose name is on the booking for that room has to be 21 or older. So if you are, say, a family with mom, dad, and 3 kids, and you intend to sleep mom and dad in one room and the kids in the other room, they will allow that. They'll even allow it if you're directly across the hall on some cruise lines. But they're going to want dad's name on one room's booking and mom's name on the other. So even if you don't put the people in the room the way you booked it, you still have to put the adult's name on each of the rooms. There has to be an adult that's 21 or older on each booking for each room. So that's something to keep in mind for the way that you book it. And they won't let you book it if you try to, just put kids in a room. They won't let you do that. You can do it in practice, but you still have to have an adult over 21's name on the booking for that room. Another thing that's important to remember is if you are traveling with minor children that are under 18, if they're your own kids and you all have the same last name, you're not going to have a problem. But if your kids have a different last name than you, which is true for me and my oldest son because I had him before I got married. So if you have a different last name than your children, maybe there's been more than one marriage or something like that. Or if you're traveling with a child that is not yours, it's your niece or nephew or one of your kids' friends or something like that, your grandchild. It's very important to know that you probably should get a letter from that child's parent or guardian, and it has to be notarized when they sign it, saying that they give you, the responsible adult, permission to travel with this child on this cruise on these dates, okay? And that's true if you're taking a child out of the country anytime, even if it's not on a cruise. This is to safeguard the child. It helps prevent parental abductions and also human trafficking. So that's what they're kind of protecting against in that scenario. I have had this letter before for my oldest son because we had different last names. His dad had gotten the letter and notarized and everything for me to take him to Europe when he was 10. But because my passport changed, after I got married, they had only updated it in a little stamp in the back of my passport. So my passport still had my maiden name. They didn't even bat an eye and they let us go through and didn't care. I never even had to show anybody the letter, but I had it. So just to be on the safe side, it's best if you have something like that on you, just in case you need it. The other reason you would want something like that is if something were to happen to the child and you needed to seek medical care for them, it's very important that you have the parents' permission temporarily, that you can take them to a doctor or take them to the hospital or take them to the health facility on the ship or whatever, and that they would be able to take care of them without their parent with them. Okay, before I show you all the third bed options that we've encountered, I want to talk about some things that you need to consider when you're thinking about who's going to be sleeping in that third or fourth bed. Number one is, how old are they? If you have a baby or a toddler that still sleeps in a crib, you do not need to bring your own pack and play or, foldable crib or anything like that. The cruise ship will provide that for you. They do have those for babies and toddlers to sleep in. If you have a toddler or a younger child that's just starting to sleep in the bed on their own, they will have bed rails that they can install on the side of the bed so that they don't fall out of bed. Once your kids get older than that, or if you're traveling as adults or whatever, you want to think about a few things when you're considering that third or fourth bed. You want to think about how big this person is. And by that, I mean, how tall are they? How big are they? How much do they weigh? There can be weight limits sometimes on, berths that come down out of the ceiling. If somebody's really tall, they may not fit sometimes in the third or fourth bed. The other thing you want to think about is mobility. Sometimes if you're going to have to be climbing up a ladder or you have to get down into a space or something like that, you really want to take those things into consideration when you're deciding, first of all, who's going to sleep in that third or fourth bed, but also how comfortable are they going to be in it. Okay, so let's take a look here. I'm including as many pictures as I could find to show you what kind of third and fourth beds we've encountered over the years on our cruises. And my first cruise was on Disney Magic with my then 4-year-old son. It was just the two of us. in 2001. So 23, 24 years ago. On that cruise, this was before Disney Cruise Line revamped the beds on Disney Magic and Disney Wonder, which were the only two ships at the time. And there were just basically big beds, and I didn't even deal with the extra bed on that one because it was just the two of us. I just let my son share the big bed with me. So he was just with me. I think they were actually like king size, and we just shared the big bed, and I didn't even have the stateroom attendant mess with an extra bed for him. Sometime after that, Disney Cruise Line changed their beds so they didn't split anymore, and this is a common complaint about Disney Cruise Line. Not every family unit is necessarily a couple, you know, mom, dad, dad, whatever, that want to share a bed. Sometimes it's two adults traveling together, or sometimes it's, like in our situation, it's me, my son, and my daughter. Nobody wants to share a bed with mom. You know, I mean, Megan will, but we really prefer it if we can each have our own bed. Because, you know, if you're all adults, nobody really, sometimes it's awkward and weird. And so that is one disadvantage of the Disney Cruise Line main beds, is that they don't split. They've made them more like raised and platform beds. They're very, very nice and very, very comfortable, but they do not split apart into two twins. And so, yes, you can put your luggage under them easier now, but you can't split them apart. So if you're not a couple that is comfortable sharing a bed, that's something to consider on Disney Cruise Line, that the beds do not split. And so two people aren't going to be sharing that. It's just going to be one person in that big bed. Otherwise, on Disney Cruise Line, I really like their third and fourth bed options, and they do even on the Dream and the Fantasy, and I think also on the Wish, and probably it'll be on the Treasure too, have some rooms, deluxe family balcony staterooms, I think. Might even be some outsides that have a fifth bed, and I'll tell you about that in a second. So what we've encountered a few times when we've gone on Disney Cruise Line is the sofa, which on Disney Cruise Line staterooms is a very nice long sofa. And it converts into a sofa bed, but it does not pull out like a sofa bed like you'd have in your house. It flips over. I think it's actually the back of the sofa flips down, and there is a full twin mattress there, and they make it up like a bed. So you're not actually like taking off the seat cushions or anything and pulling out anything. It actually just converts into a full-size twin bed that an adult could even sleep on. This is the same thing that you'll see in day beds at Walt Disney World and Disneyland at their some of their deluxe hotels. We've had one at Disneyland when it was still Paradise Pier Hotel. It's now the Pixar Pier Hotel. We had a bed like that there that Megan slept on when she was about 8, 9 years old. Okay, and then when we stayed at Yacht Club, which is a deluxe resort hotel at Walt Disney World, we were in a room where there was a day bed like that where it flipped over, and my son Andrew slept in that bed. So there's some hotels at the Disney theme parks that do have that same style, and they use that in all the Disney Cruise Line staterooms. The sofa converts into a full twin bed, and you do get housekeeping twice a day on Disney Cruise Line. So when you leave in the morning, like to go have breakfast or go do things for the day, your stateroom attendant comes in and automatically converts that back into a sofa. So you have your sofa to use and sit on throughout the day, which is really nice. You don't even have to ask them to do it. If for some reason you don't want them to because you want to use it for a nap later or something, you can just let them know and they'll leave it. But they will flip it and put it back to a sofa in the morning, and then at night when you go to dinner and the show or whatever, they convert it back into a bed for you, and your beds are all ready to go when you come back. So that's really nice. The fourth bed in a Disney Cruise Line ship stateroom, which we've encountered before, is a bunk or an upper bunk or an upper berth that comes down right above that sofa. So basically it turns it into bunk beds right directly over each other. And my kids, even at full adult size, have used those. So an adult can sleep in that upper bunk. If there is a weight limit, I'm not sure. We would have said it in a past video, which I'll try to find one and link up here. And I don't think there's not an age limit. I think there might be a minimum age that they say, like don't let children under 3 or something sleep up there. But otherwise, they're full-size twin beds, basically one over the other. And that one I think is a good option. In the deluxe Disney Cruise Line staterooms, we've never stayed in one of these. We do have one booked for a cruise next year, but that cruise is tentative. We're waiting for my daughter's calendar to come out from school for the 2025-2026 school year. We may have to move that cruise depending on when school starts for her. But the room we have booked right now is one of these deluxes with a 5th bed, and that additional bed is a Murphy bed that pulls down out of the wall. So again, something very similar to what Disney is using in their theme park resort hotels, like the value resorts, which I talked about in this video, and even like at Riviera, they are using these, where it's a full mattress, all complete. It doesn't get folded up or anything. It just comes down from the wall whole, and then there's your bed. They have those in some of the rooms on Disney Cruise Line. Not on the original 2 ships. There's none of those on Magic or Wonder, but they have them on the other ships. So if you have a party of 5, you'd have the 2 bunks, the full big bed, and then a Murphy bed. So you could sleep up to 5 full-size people in one of those rooms, and very comfortably and easily fit, 2 adults and 3 kids. The time that we sailed on Disney Wonder, it was me, my husband, my dad, Andrew, and Megan, who was a baby at the time. My husband and I had the big bed. My dad had the lower bunk, the sofa bed, and then Andrew was in the upper bunk, and then Megan was in a pack and play portable crib, which the cruise line provided for us. So that was an example of 5 people in one room that we could all fit with what was provided for us by the cruise line, and we were very comfortable with that, and it was totally fine. Disney Cruise Line staterooms have a ton of storage. So even with 5 of us, we had plenty of places to put our things in the room, and it was totally fine. You definitely will not find that to be true, though, on most other cruise lines. I don't know of any other cruise line, other than some suites possibly, that will allow you to have 5 people in one room. So Disney Cruise Line might be the only option if you have 5 and you all want to be in one stateroom. So going back to that one other cruise that I took that there were 5 of us, which was our last cruise on Holland America's Eurodam. Like I said, we had 2 different staterooms, and the sofa bed in our stateroom was a traditional pulls out from the couch sofa bed, which Megan slept on and found to be very uncomfortable. She did not like that. We split the main bed into 2 twin beds, so I was in one, Ben was in one, and then Megan was on the sofa bed. This was not a good option. I didn't like this at all. Not only was it uncomfortable because, she could feel the springs and things like that, the other problem we had with that 3rd bed was that it completely blocked our access to the balcony. And since Holland America is a Carnival-owned cruise brand, I think they're down to only giving housekeeping service once a day. And so we lost our access to the balcony for almost the entire cruise because the stateroom attendant was not coming in twice a day to switch the bed around. And it was really weird. He came in at very random times. There was no predictability to it. And so some days we would have our couch and be able to get to the balcony. And sometimes the bed would be out there for basically the whole day. And we never got to get to our balcony. We couldn't get over it or past it. It completely blocked that whole end of the room. So that was definitely a very negative type of 3rd bed option. And I would not recommend that you have a 3rd person in your party use that type of sofa bed like they had on Holland America. Are there any other cruise lines that use traditional pull-out sofa beds like that? Let us know in the comments below so we can kind of warn people. I don't think those are a good option. I don't make my family sleep on traditional sofa beds in hotels anymore because I really think they're uncomfortable and they're not a very good bed option for anyone. They're really bad on your back and yeah. So now going back to Royal Caribbean. We've been on a number of cruises on Royal Caribbean, and they have a bunch of different 3rd and 4th bed options. Some are better than others. We've been on 3 classes of Royal Caribbean ships. My son Andrew traveled on it's a class that doesn't exist anymore. He went on Monarch of the Seas, which was one of the oldest, smallest ships, and Royal Caribbean has now gotten rid of all the ships that were in that class, so they don't have any of those anymore. But on that cruise, he was traveling on a school trip with high school students, and there were 3 other boys with him sharing one interior stateroom. All it really was a set of bunk beds on this side and a set of bunk beds on this side in a very small area of space. I can't imagine how they fit in there. He was so happy on the cruises we took after that to see how much nicer it could be when you're not squeezing 4 teenage boys into this tiny little interior room, because it was basically just like bunks, and that was all that was in the room. It can be really small like that. I mean, an interior or an ocean view stateroom might say that it sleeps 4, but it's going to be pretty tight. You want to look at the square footage of the room. We've also had several cruises on the Voyager class ships. We've had 2 different experiences with the 3rd bed on that class of ship. So this would be Voyager, Explorer, Adventure, Navigator, Mariner. We've been on 3 of them actually. So the first time when we were on Mariner of the Seas, we had an aft facing stateroom, so all the way at the back of the ship. Nice, long, big, spacious stateroom, big, spacious balcony. And the 3rd/4th bed option in that room was great. It was a sofa bed that kind of converted similar to the Disney Cruise Line beds. So it wasn't the, the kind that pulls out. It kind of flipped open, but it flipped into what they technically say is a double bed. So 2 people could sleep on it side by side. However, the only one that needed to sleep there was Ben. Megan and I had the stateroom attendant split the big bed into 2 twins. I was in one bed, Megan was in one bed, and then Ben had that whole big sofa bed that was actually meant for 2 people to himself, and he really liked that and said it was very comfortable. One bummer that we had on that cruise, though, was our stateroom attendant never converted it back into a sofa. And we really liked that sofa on that cruise, and we're very happy to have that nice big sofa. And then he left it as a bed the entire time. I didn't know then what I know now, which is that I should have said to our stateroom attendant, could you please put this back into a sofa every day? I wish I had done that. I didn't, and we never got to use the sofa again after embarkation day. So if you have a situation like that, make sure that you talk to your stateroom attendant and tell them what you need. I'd really like you to turn this back into a sofa every day so we can use it as a sofa, or I really want you to keep the beds like this so my child can nap during the day, or whatever it is. Just make sure you let them know. Later on, however, when we were on Navigator of the Seas a few years later, we had a stateroom attendant who was he'd had a lot of promotions and he was kind of a higher level. And he told us, when I told him about that was wrong and that they should have been converting the sofa back into a sofa every day automatically. So I'm not sure what happened there, but I still should have probably said something. When we were on Navigator of the Seas, sister ship to Mariner, we got the other kind of 3rd bed. So what I didn't realize at the time, which this is where it goes back to really looking closely at the deck plans, is those Voyager class ships actually have some rooms that are only for 2 people. They have some rooms that are up to 3 people, and they have some rooms that are up to 4 people. The rooms that were up to 4 people had that fold down sofa bed that I talked about. But when we went on Navigator of the Seas, that room, I didn't pay that close attention, was only indicated to be up to 3 people. And when we came into that room, we were kind of surprised because the sofa was similar in style to what we'd had on Mariner of the Seas, but it was a lot shorter. If you were going to lay on it as on the sofa, an adult couldn't fit there. And that was how the bed had been on Mariner of the Seas. So we were confused. We're like, how is this going to turn into a bed? When he made up the room that night, we discovered that the sofa was not the 3rd bed. The 3rd bed was an upper berth that came down out of the ceiling, and it came across the beds below it this way, crosswise, across our heads. And we did not like that at all. Megan ended up taking that upper bunk, and she had difficulty getting up and down there just because she was an adult. It was hard for her to get up and down the ladder. She did have enough room in that upper berth to sit up and read in her bed, but because that bed was across our heads, we could not sit up and read in our beds down below, or we would hit our heads. And we actually all did hit our heads several times. And then to add insult to injury, he did leave, since it wasn't affecting our seating situation, our stateroom attendant did leave that third bed down the entire cruise once he took it down. It made me feel very claustrophobic to have this bunk like right over my face right here when I was laying. That was one I would not recommend. So if you're looking at a deck plan and you see that the room is only meant to be up to 3 people, it's worth a phone call to the cruise line to ask, what exactly is this third bed like? You know, what is it? Or do some research online and look for a picture or something, because that type was not something we want to repeat. And we definitely watch out for it now when I book cruises. On the Oasis class ships on Royal Caribbean, the staterooms are very new and modern and sleek looking and stuff, at least on the newer ones. But the 3rd and 4th bed, and I think on that ship, it's always up to 4 people. I don't think they say anything is just 3. It's a sofa, but it's not really a sofa. It's basically just foam cushions and then smaller foam cushions sitting around the edge of it to be the back of the sofa. The 3rd bed, they just literally take off those extra cushions and put a sheet over the main cushion that you sit on and say that that's a 3rd bed. And Ben slept on that on Harmony of the Seas and did not like it at all. It was not very comfortable. He was basically just sleeping on a big foam cushion. The 4th bed, which we only discovered about halfway through that cruise, is a trundle bed that pulls out at the bottom of that sofa. So the 4th person in those rooms is sleeping on a foam cushion mattress thing on the floor right in front of the balcony door. If it's flipped around so the sofa is closer to the stateroom door to the hallway, then they're not in front of the balcony door, but they're still basically going to be blocking the path where you need to walk. So that's definitely not a good one either, because not only is someone basically sleeping kind of on the floor, but they're definitely going to be blocking access to parts of the stateroom for everyone. Now, Royal Caribbean, I think they are still doing housekeeping twice a day. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. We'll find out on our next cruise, I guess, but we weren't using that 4th pull-out trundle bed. But again, I really feel that they should have been converting it back into the sofa for us to use during the day, and they didn't. He didn't take the sheets off, and he didn't put the cushions back up. And this time I did say something, and he still didn't do it. He said, oh, okay. I said, can you please, we want to use the sofa during the day. He put the cushions back on, but he didn't take the sheets off. So basically we were sitting on Ben's bed for the rest of the time. So that was really a bummer too. So I don't particularly like the 3rd and 4th bed option on the Oasis class ships on Royal Caribbean, and neither do my kids, which is why on our upcoming cruise on Utopia of the Seas, I got us to adjacent staterooms. So we'll have the big bed being converted into 2 twin beds in both rooms. Everybody will have their own real bed, and we won't have to use those 3rd and 4th beds at all. It would be pretty tight for a family of 4 or a traveling party of 4 to squeeze into those staterooms on the Oasis class ships. Here's something I want to tell you about big ships versus small ships. And this sounds backwards, but it's true. The bigger the ship, the smaller the cabins. And the older and smaller the ship, the bigger the cabins and the bigger the public venue space. That seems like it's wrong, but it's true. You will have more space per passenger on smaller, older ships than you will on bigger, newer ships. They are trying to squeeze more people onto those bigger ships so that they can earn more revenue with people's onboard spending and things like that. The more people they have on board buying things like Wi-Fi and drink packages and extra cost attractions and things like that, the more money the cruise line can make. So they really pack in a lot of smaller square footage staterooms onto the big ships than they do on the small ships. The smaller and older ships, you will find the cabins to be much more spacious. and have a lot more room to walk around, you will also find the balconies to be bigger. I talked about that in this video where I compared Harmony of the Seas to Mariner of the Seas, both of which we've cruised on. I really personally do not recommend, and you can always see the square footage of the room somewhere. I really prefer never to book a cruise ship cabin that is less than 180 square feet. So kind of keep an eye on that. If you can get more into the 180 to 200 or even over 200 square feet, it just gives you a little bit more breathing room and you don't feel quite so cramped. If you don't care because you're not going to do anything but sleep and change your clothes in your stateroom and you don't mind if it's tiny, you don't care if it's an inside stateroom, any of that, then fine. But I'm just telling you, like, especially when anytime you throw an additional person in there, not only for having space to store all of your stuff in the storage, but just the feeling of having 3 or 4 people in such a small space, it can really make a difference when you have that extra square footage. I really hope that this video was helpful to you. This is just something that I've noticed over time, that 3rd and 4th bed can really make a difference in the overall comfort and enjoyment of your cruise. Because if you don't sleep well at night, or if you're not happy with the bed that you get or something like that, it can really take away from quality of your vacation. So this is something I definitely think you should pay attention to. And if you have a party of 3 or more people that need to be sharing one cruise ship stateroom, choose carefully. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give me a thumbs up down below. And again, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming travel videos. Have a great day, everyone, and safe travels.